Most people who earn a decent salary still feel broke at the end of the month. Not because they're spending on crazy things, not because they're irresponsible, but because nobody ever gave them a system. And here's the uncomfortable part. You could double your salary tomorrow, and without a system, you'd still feel the same way. So today, I'm going to give you one. The simplest budgeting framework that actually works, even if you hate budgeting, even if you've tried and failed before, even if the word budget makes you want to close this tab. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. And by the end of this video, you will understand it, remember it, and actually be able to use it. Let's go. Here's a situation I want you to think about. You get paid, money hits your account, and for about 3 days, you feel fine. Then quietly, it starts disappearing. Rent, subscriptions, groceries, that dinner you said yes to, the thing you bought because it was on sale. And suddenly, it's the 20th of the month and you're doing mental gymnastics trying to figure out if you can afford to fill up your car. Sound familiar? Now, here's what most people do in this situation. They try to track every single purchase, write everything down, use an app, make a spreadsheet. And for about 4 days, it works brilliantly. And then life happens and the system collapses, and you feel guilty and you stop. The problem isn't willpower. The problem is that most budgeting systems are designed for accountants, not humans. They ask you to create 30 categories, to log every coffee, to feel bad every time you spend on something you enjoy. That's not a budget, that's a punishment. What you actually need is a framework simple enough to remember without an app, flexible enough to survive real life, and structured enough to make sure the important things, savings, bills, always get handled first. That's the 50-30-20 rule. 3 numbers, that's it. Here is the idea. You take your monthly take-home pay, that's after tax, the number that actually lands in your account, and you split it into 3 buckets. 50% goes to needs, 30% goes to wants, 20% goes to savings and debt repayment. That's the whole rule. But let's make it real because the labels matter. Bucket 1, needs, 50% of your take-home pay. Needs are the things life cannot function without. Rent or mortgage, utilities, groceries, actual groceries, not the fancy cheese, transport to work, basic insurance, minimum debt payments. The test for whether something is a need is simple. If you stopped paying for it, would something break? Your home, your health, your ability to get to work? If yes, it's a need. Notice what is not on that list. The streaming subscriptions, the gym membership you go to twice a month, the coffee shop near the office. Those are wants. We'll get there. Bucket 2, wants, 30% of your take-home pay. Wants are the things that make life enjoyable rather than merely functional. Eating out, entertainment, holidays, hobbies, upgrading from the basic version to the one you actually like. A gym membership, yes. New clothes beyond basic necessity. And here is something important. Wants are not bad. This is not the category you should feel guilty about. The whole point of the 50-30-20 rule is that it gives your wants a protected budget. You don't have to feel guilty spending this money because you've already handled the other 2 buckets. The problem for most people is that their wants are secretly eating into their savings because without a system, everything just blurs together. Bucket 3, savings and debt repayment, 20% of your take-home pay. This is the bucket that changes your future. It covers your emergency fund, your investments, your retirement contributions, and any extra payments on top of the minimum for debts you're working to clear. This is the bucket that most people either skip entirely or treat as whatever is left over at the end of the month. And whatever is left over at the end of the month, if you haven't seen your account before, is usually close to zero. The 50-30-20 rule flips that. You pay the 20% first, before the wants, before the discretionary stuff. It becomes non-negotiable, like rent. Let's run a quick example to make it concrete. Say your take-home pay is $3,000 a month. 50% is $1,500. That covers your needs. 30% is $900. That's your wants, guilt-free. 20% is $600. That goes straight to savings or debt. On day 1 of the month, before anything else, $600 goes to a savings account or investment account, automatically. The rest allocates from there. Simple, memorable, and crucially adjustable, which leads us to the first key insight. Insight 1. The percentages are a starting point, not a rule. If you live in an expensive city, your needs might naturally run to 60 or 65%. That doesn't mean the system is broken. It means you adjust. Maybe you're doing 65-15-20 or 60-20-20. The principle holds even if the percentages shift. Similarly, if your income is high relative to your cost of living, you might push savings to 30 or 35%. The framework scales in both directions. The mistake people make is treating the rule as a pass-fail test. It's not. It's a compass. If your needs are eating 70% of your income, that's important information, not a reason to abandon the system, but a signal to work on reducing fixed costs over time. Insight. Here's where people trip up. They put things in the needs bucket that are really wants and then wonder why the math doesn't work. Your phone bill is a need. The top-tier unlimited plan with every add-on is partly a want. A car might be a need. A car payment that takes 20% of your take-home pay is a lifestyle choice worth examining. The rule only works if you're honest with yourself about what goes where, and that honesty is actually one of the most valuable things this exercise gives you. Not just a budget, but clarity on what you're actually prioritizing with your money. Insight 3. The 20% savings bucket has an internal order of priority. Once you're putting 20% aside, the question becomes, where does it go? Here's a simple order that works for most people. First, build a starter emergency fund, around 1 month of expenses. This exists so that when something unexpected happens, it doesn't destroy your budget and send you into debt. Second, pay down any high-interest debt, credit cards especially. Any interest rate above roughly 7 or 8% is almost impossible to outpace with investments, so clearing that debt is effectively a guaranteed return. Third, once high-interest debt is gone and your emergency fund is solid, the rest goes into long-term investing. That's where the compounding we talked about in the last video kicks in. Most people try to do all three simultaneously and end up doing none of them properly. The order matters.
Here's what I want you to do right now, and it takes less than 5 minutes. Pull up your last month's bank statement. Add up everything you spent. Then sort each expense into one of 3 buckets: needs, wants, savings. Don't overthink it. Don't aim for perfection. Just see where your money actually went. Most people who do this discover one of 2 things. Either their needs are eating way more than 50%, usually because of housing or transport costs, or their wants have completely swallowed what should be their savings bucket. Both are useful things to know. You can't fix a leak you haven't found. If this video made the 50-30-20 rule click for you, give it a like. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who need it. And if you have a question about your specific situation, drop it in the comments. I read them all and I answer as many as I can.